With The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom coming very soon as the sequel to Breath of the Wild, let's take a quick look back at the story of Breath of the Wild to see where it all left off. Now, I remember being originally disappointed in the story upon first beating the game, but I've also had many people tell me that if you're playing Zelda for story, you're playing the wrong game. Now, while I don't really agree with that, it is true that no Zelda game has gone really super deep with its narrative, as it usually is just a background premise that the gameplay fills out. Breath of the Wild very much is a padded out premise delivered in out-of-order piecemeal with a lackluster ending, but it is that ending that paves the way for new installments. And looking back, they gave us almost an hour's worth of cutscenes that, when put in order, really don't make too bad of a Zelda tale. So let's recap the adventure. Thanks to the DLC of the game, we know the story opens with the reveal of the 4 champions and their masterful combat skills and agility, be it Revali's whirlwind aerial archery, Daruk's charging like a tank.
Spineless little cuckoos! No monster stands a chance when fighting me, the almighty Daruk.
Mipha's acrobatics on the water.
Join me. We'll go together so you can get a feel for it. Let's go.
Or Urbosa's dance-like swordsmanship.
Do your worst. Out of respect for our princess, you may keep your lives. Now go!
They each make a point to talk about Hyrule's greatest knight, Link, who in particular has a history of time spent with Mipha, and who Daruk has a lot of respect for, while Revali can't stand that he exists. After the introductions, we see them all awarded the title of champions with an accompanying blue garment handcrafted by Zelda herself, and they all take a selfie with the Sheikah Slate, a new feature they just discovered. The main game picks up from here with another knighting ceremony, particularly for Link, where it is revealed that Zelda is forlorn about some failure Link reminds her of simply by being the beast that he is.
Gee, this is uplifting. She's making it sound like we already lost.
The next cutscene is Revali's original reveal, indicating that all the ceremonial pomp is over and that Link and Zelda are making surveying rounds to each of the divine beasts to ensure that all is ready for the eventual attack on Calamity Ganon, which is the whole reason why the King of Hyrule sought champions in the first place. Rivali, as we know, just boasts to Link the whole time and mocks his lack of flight. From there, Link and Zelda make their way to Goron City, which they go about a very weird way on the map according to the memory location, but never mind. Zelda questions Link's ability with the Sword of Destiny, regarding him as nothing more than an assigned escort. But once in Goron City, Daruk shows off his piloting skills with Link, indicating that all is in order on Death Mountain. The next cutscene shows Zelda off on her own survey back in the Tabantha region for some reason, where she is trying to access a shrine she learned is designed for access only by the wielder of the Master Sword, which she hopes to bypass before Link shows up. This infuriates Zelda, who wishes Link would just stop following her and that her father would stop babying her. Zelda is next seen asleep atop the divine beast Naboris with Urbosa guarding her. Link shows up again to Urbosa's delight, and seemingly by orders from either Urbosa herself or the king, it's not really specified who. But either way, Urbosa settles the worry in Link, knowing from his silence that the two have had some quarrels that aren't really his fault. Along those same lines, we next see Zelda fleeing from the Yiga clan, presumably off on her own survey again without Link. But as we know, in the heat of the moment, Link clashes blades with her attackers, and suddenly Zelda begins to see Link in the light of the hero that he is. The two begin spending all their time together, next seen randomly near Death Mountain among a slew of dead monsters where Link is slightly wounded. Zelda insists that they make haste with their preparations due to the increasing scale of attacks, so they head towards Zora's domain to check in with Mipha. Along the way, however, they have a brief diversion where Zelda is overcome with fascination for flowers and frogs, showing us that she much prefers nature and science over her role as a princess. She also seems to take delight in Link's existence now. But finally in Zora's domain, this is where we first learn of Mipha's healing ability as she mends the wounds on Link's arm from the previous battle that we saw in that other cutscene. With all the champions accounted for, the rest of the story becomes a waiting game, waiting for both Calamity Ganon to show itself, and for Zelda to find her destined power. Link and Zelda are seen waiting out a storm while Zelda expresses disdain with being told what she must do her whole life. Coinciding with that, we next see Zelda atop Hyrule Castle in pure awe of the ancient guardians before getting stern disapproval from her father and direct orders to do nothing else but pursue her power.
Do you know how the gossip mongers refer to you? They are out there at this moment, whispering amongst themselves that you are the heir to a throne of nothing but failure. It is woven into your destiny that you prove them wrong. Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
So she prays at the Spring of Courage and at the Spring of Power, but to no avail. She then rides with Link to the Spring of Wisdom where she turns 17 and puts all her hope into finding her power there. But as we know, nothing happens there either, and all the champions try to lift her spirits up before being interrupted by Calamity Ganon's awakening. It's finally time for everything this has all been for, even though Zelda's not ready yet. Unfortunately, we see none of what happens next and know that the game itself isn't about showing us this great war. Instead, we next see Link and Zelda fleeing in great distress and covered in filth from battle before Zelda collapses in defeat, revealing that all the champions and her own father are dead and that the Calamity Ganon has turned all the guardians against them. She places all the blame on herself for still not having fulfilled her destiny as a princess with great power. But then, in what seems like their final encounter just moments before death, a sudden urge to protect Link with her life awakens Zelda's power, wiping clean an entire battlefield full of evil guardians. Too little, too late, though, as Link collapses on the verge of death. But in this moment, the Master Sword speaks to Zelda, seemingly revealing her next task and reminding her about the Shrine of Resurrection, where Link can be saved. Zelda orders 2 Sheikah men to take him there, while she goes to the Lost Woods to lay the Master Sword to rest, reassuring both it and the Deku Tree that Link will one day come back for it. It isn't revealed what exactly Zelda has left to do, but one would assume it's to go back to Hyrule Castle and use her power to seal, or at least stall, Calamity Ganon for what turns out to be 100 years. Finally, 100 years pass, and Breath of the Wild happens. For some in as little as 13 minutes with little more than a pair of pants and a tree branch. And for others, over 300 hours are spent with Link's coming back to strength. Regardless, the story here is nothing more than freeing the divine beasts from their calamity takeover with the aid of those who are now in charge of the regions of Hyrule since 100 years have passed. It's all about gameplay and uncovering what we just went over in some random, out-of-order sequence, which kinda hurts the story at the time of discovering it. But in the end, the Calamity Ganon beatdown happens, with the champions now as spirits instead of live beings, but the cutscene showing it is still a super satisfying moment thanks to the music and the overall hype.
Has finally come. Brace yourself, Ganon, for the sting of my revenge!
This will be our final opportunity. We will not fail.
Let's go, little guy. Now, open up wide, Ganon!
100 years in the making. Hold on, Princess. Our moment has arrived.
The ending is to be expected as Zelda is freed and seals Ganon away as always, but it still leaves you wanting for some reason. Especially as it cuts to the credits immediately after she simply asks if Link remembers her or not. Then they just walk away from the castle without a word. The final scene, however, is what we are probably most concerned about. Zelda says that Vah Ruta in Zora's domain has stopped working, so she's off with Link to investigate. She insists that they can rebuild Hyrule together and laughs at her slight decline in power in the last 100 years. Again, an ending leaving much to be desired, but that sets the slate wide open for both a spin-off game that rebuilds Hyrule, how cool would that be? And more obviously the next installment of Zelda, which we now know is Tears of the Kingdom. So where will Tears of the Kingdom take the story from here? Is the role of the champions now over? Is there even anything of note here at all? Or did Nintendo make sure that they could abandon almost everything and write a whole new story with unrelated details by leaving Breath of the Wild's ending so ambiguous? And finally, what did you think of Breath of the Wild's story? Was it too empty, or has it gotten better with age? Let me know in the comments, and thanks for watching!
Perhaps even beyond, but it all must start with us. Let's be off. I can no longer hear the voice inside the sword. I suppose it would make sense if my power had dwindled over the past 100 years. I'm surprised to admit it, but I can accept that.